A newlywed couple's honeymoon should, in theory, be one of the most memorable, exciting, and joyful occasions of one's lifetime. Not only are you soaking up the sights of somewhere beautiful, but you're doing it with the person you love most in the world. But unfortunately, not everyone's honeymoon goes to plan. And for some people, it results in the tragic and abrupt end of what was meant to be a lifelong commitment. In today's episode, we will be examining two such instances as we explore disturbing honeymoon cold cases. Christina Kettlewell. In May of 1947, 21-year-old Christina Machen married John Jack Kettlewell, a 26-year-old war veteran she'd known for 3 years. As the couple's relationship was frowned upon by Christina's family, the pair decided to elope. On their honeymoon, bizarrely, they brought along one of Jack's closest friends, 28-year-old Ronnie Berry, an Italian immigrant who was formerly known as Ronnie Kifo. After tying the knot on May 12th, the newlyweds spent a few days at a Toronto apartment before joining Ronnie at his cabin in Seven Falls, Ontario. 3 days later, on May 20th, the cottage caught fire. Jack was discovered by Ronnie, seemingly dazed and disoriented, but Christina was nowhere to be seen. Ronnie reportedly tried to look for the new bride before he took his friend to the hospital, but was unable to find her. Though neighbors attempted to put out the fire, the cabin burned to the ground. Christina was discovered shortly afterwards at around 10 p.m. by a neighbor, face down in a shallow creek, about 150 yards from the cabin. She was wearing her pajamas, and a later autopsy revealed that she had drowned. Codeine, the painkiller, was discovered in her stomach during the post-mortem. Notably, one witness who had used the creek for water when trying to extinguish the fire didn't see Christina's body when collecting water. Jack was treated at the hospital for burn wounds and a head injury. He too was found with codeine in his system. Investigators soon turned their attention to Jack's friend Ronnie, noting how odd it was that he had accompanied the couple on their honeymoon, and how enthusiastic he appeared to be about the pair's union. During the first inquest, it was discovered that the 28-year-old was the beneficiary of 2 separate life insurance policies for Jack and Christina worth $5,000 each, or just over $77,000 Canadian dollars today, and that the policies had been taken out before the pair tied the knot. Furthermore, it was revealed that there was a clause which stated that should Jack or Christina pass away from accidental causes, Ronnie would receive twice as much money as the policy was worth. Additionally, he'd also bought $5,000 of insurance on the cottage, and at the time of Christina's death, Ronnie was known to be completely broke. The police concluded that the 28-year-old was motivated by money. Stranger still, detectives found out that Jack had turned over his wartime gratuity payments to the 28-year-old. It was also revealed that the ring he'd borrowed to propose to Christina was never recovered, and was worth around $10,000 in today's money. Ronnie, in response to the scrutiny that was being thrown his way, told investigators that Christina was being blackmailed after a criminal attack of some kind in April 1946 by several men, and that he had given her between $12,000 to $15,000 to pay them off. It does not appear that this claim was ever substantiated, and the exact nature of this criminal attack is unclear. At some point during the police investigation, Jack admitted to having an affair with Ronnie. However, he would later claim that detectives coerced him into telling this false narrative. By all accounts, the two men were reportedly very close and were the frequent targets of rumors which said they were more than just friends. Ronnie would later claim that the two had sex, but that the brief affair had been broken off long ago. Further information about Christina came to light during the investigation into her death, although much of it is conflicting. In early April, just over a month before Christina and Jack married, the 21-year-old attempted to poison herself. She had penned a letter to Ronnie, describing her fear that Jack would not propose, writing, "This will be the best way out, as I cannot bear to see another girl have him." Later that month, she attempted to take her own life again, writing to Ronnie, "When you love someone, you really love him, and I know there is no one for me but Jack. And if I cannot have him, I do not intend anyone else to. I waited, as you might say, in the hope that Jack would ask me to marry him. But now I realize I am just a passing fancy." Christina's relationship with Jack clearly caused her great distress, but there also appeared to be some underlying issues that were never adequately addressed. Although her letters state her fear of losing Jack, Christina's family claimed that on the day of their wedding, quote, Christina had been drugged prior to the wedding and came to married before deciding to make the best of it. They also claimed that Christina was afraid of both Jack and Ronnie and believed that Ronnie was in love with Christina, and that's why he accompanied them on their honeymoon. An RCMP handwriting expert testified that the suicide notes left behind by Christina back in April were indeed written by her. There is some speculation that Ronnie tagged along with the couple on the trip, because he was aware of the 21-year-old's poor mental health and worried about the pair's safety. A third and final suicide note had been written by Christina on May 19th, the day before the cabin fire. She wrote, Ronnie is in the boat outside somewhere. By the time he gets back, everything will be over with. He must be afraid something would happen because he is staying an extra day to make sure we go back to Toronto with him. These letters were saved from the fire by Ronnie and subsequently handed over to investigators, a detail that many find peculiar as it indicated he spent time while the cabin was burning down, searching for the letters. Adding further ambiguity to the entire case is a statement given by Ronnie, which conflicts with the one he made earlier. While he originally claimed to be sunbathing before spotting smoke coming from the cabin, which is when he went in and discovered Jack dazed and confused, he would later make another statement, where he claimed that he'd found Jack dazed in the cabin with blood on his face, and that Christina was there, untalkative with tears in her eyes. He subsequently carried Jack outside, and the fire began 15 minutes later. When he went back to the cabin, he saw no sign of Christina or the weapon which could have caused Jack to bleed. Jack remarried 3 years after Christina's death. He had a son, Richard, with his wife, whom he separated from in 1969, although they never divorced. He died in 1998. According to Richard, Jack never spoke to his family about what happened. In fact, he only learned about his father's first wife as an adult when his wife discovered the case while looking at old newspapers at the library. Ronnie, meanwhile, left Canada and moved to New York in 1956. Before he left, he gifted Richard with a dog. Jack's family believe he never heard from Ronnie again after this time. The jury of the inquest was never able to agree on whether or not Christina died due to foul play, and the case remains unsolved to this very day. Glenn and Bessie Hyde. On April 12, 1928, Bessie and Glenn Hyde married in Twin Falls, Idaho. The couple had met the year before, but there had been some delays in getting married, as Bessie's previous husband had refused to grant her a divorce. To celebrate their new union, the couple decided to run the rapids of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon in Arizona. While Glenn was an experienced rafter, Bessie was a complete novice. Glenn hoped to set an all-time speed record for traveling through the area, and Bessie, if successful, would have been the first woman to run the canyon. However, neither Bessie nor Glenn were able to see their dreams realized. Beginning their trip on October 20th in Green River, it was noted that Glenn refused to carry any life jackets aboard their scow. Reportedly, earlier on in their trip, a fellow rafter told them that their boat would not be suitable for the journey. But this didn't seem to faze Glenn. On November 15th, the pair arrived at River Mile 88. They were on track to break the record Glenn was after, and shortly thereafter they arrived at the home of photographer Emery Kolb. According to Emery, Bessie appeared exhausted and nervous, likely concerned about the fact that the next stretch of the trip was going to be the most dangerous. As it was now winter, Emery offered that the couple stay at his home until the weather improved. However, Glenn, determined to see his ambitions through, declined. He also turned down life jackets, which Emery had offered them. The couple continued with their journey the following day, even allowing a tourist to hitch a ride in their boat for a few miles. After the tourist departed, there were no further confirmed sightings of the newlyweds. When they failed to show up in California on time, Glenn's father reported them missing and began to organize a search party on December 6th. 19 days later, a search party led by Emery Kolb discovered the scow, trapped in some rocks in the middle of the water near River Mile 237. The scow was standing and intact, their possessions inside, but there was no sign of Bessie or Glenn. Bessie's diary was recovered, and the last entry inside was dated November 30th. The last location she mentioned was Diamond Creek Rapid at River Mile 225. Investigators would later find evidence which indicated the two camped there overnight. Furthermore, at the scene where the scow was found, it was noted that the boat's bow line was caught on something beneath the water. After failing to dislodge it, the rope was cut, and around this time, a witness reported seeing a brown leather jacket floating in the river. The witness was never able to recover the garments, but there are suspicions that the jacket was Bessie's, as she was wearing a similarly described item of clothing at the time of the disappearance. With very little evidence available in the case, many theories have been perpetuated as to the fate of Glenn and Bessie Hyde. In 1971, a tour group on a rafting trip through the Grand Canyon set up camp at Diamond Creek. Here they were informed of the strange disappearance of the newlyweds by the tour guide. One individual who was part of the group, an elderly woman named Elizabeth Cutler, reportedly claimed to be Bessie Hyde. She said Glenn had become obsessed with breaking the record and had subsequently turned violent, so she'd stabbed him to death and escaped the canyon on her own. However, Cutler would later recant this confession, and birth records confirm that she had been born Elizabeth Cutler in Ohio in 1908. 5 years later, in 1976, Emery Kolb died. His grandson was clearing out the boathouse on his property when he discovered skeletal remains inside a canoe. Testing showed that the remains were male and that the victim had been shot in the skull. It was initially believed that Emery had killed Glenn Hyde, and these were his remains, but it was later determined that the remains belonged to a John Doe discovered in the Grand Canyon in 1933 after taking his own life. As Emery was a representative of the county coroner's jury at the time, and the victim was unidentified, it is believed he took the remains home and put them in his boathouse, subsequently forgetting about them. Several decades later, in 1992, famed rafter Georgie Clark died at the age of 81. There was some speculation shortly after her death that she was Bessie Hyde living under a new identity. This was because a handgun was discovered alongside a marriage certificate, allegedly for Bessie and Glenn Hyde. A birth certificate was also found which revealed that Georgie had been born Bessie DeRoss. However, no conclusive link was ever proven between Bessie and Georgie, the latter of whom's early life was heavily documented. Furthermore, Georgie gave birth in March of 1929, meaning Bessie would have been 5 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance, and neither her family, her friends, nor witnesses were aware of any possibility that she might be pregnant. The main theory in the case is that Glenn and Bessie's boat became caught on large, jagged bedrocks named the Fangs at the 232-mile rapid. The rocks are known to cause rafters problems, and it is believed that the couple were thrown overboard and subsequently drowned. Glenn's father believed that their scow was caught, so they attempted to hike out of the canyon, but became lost and died trying to escape. Meanwhile, Bessie's brother has pointed out that her first husband, Earl Helmwick, had a violent temper. He noted that some people believed Helmwick was involved in the disappearances. However, no evidence connects him to the case. Helmwick remarried in 1930 and refused to discuss Bessie up until his death. Additionally, there is no evidence to support the theory that the Hydes left their craft as Glenn's father suggested. In the 95 years since Glenn and Bessie vanished, their case has inspired several books, numerous episodes of television, and even a musical, but still, it has no concrete answers. Due to the passage of time, the case is no longer being investigated. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.